Straight ahead on Law&Crime Daily. Survivors of the Oxford high school shooting file a federal suit against their school district. Plus, jurors must restart deliberations in the civil trial of once beloved comedian Bill Cosby. And the Waukesha parade massacre, how a Wisconsin judge works to secure an unbiased jury. But first,
I'm terrified, which is what I guess a defamation lawsuit is meant to do. It's meant to take your voice.
Weeks after a verdict in Johnny Depp's favor, the actor's ex-wife speaks out in an exclusive interview. Law&Crime Daily covering court cases from coast to coast. Welcome everyone to Law&Crime Daily. I'm your host, Brian Buckmire. For the first time since the monumental Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard verdict, Heard speaks out in a series of exclusive interviews for NBC. Nearly 3 weeks ago, a Virginia jury largely sided with Johnny Depp, awarding him $10 million in compensatory damages and $5 million in punitive damages. Heard was granted a smaller win in her countersuit when jurors awarded her $2 million in compensatory damages over comments made by Depp's attorney, Adam Waldman. She was given nothing for punitive damages. The verdicts came after 6 weeks of testimony stemming from allegations that Heard defamed Depp in her 2018 Washington Post op-ed about domestic violence. While Depp sued Heard for $50 million, Heard countersued for $100 million, doubling down on abuse claims. In an exclusive interview with Dateline, Amber Heard says she is terrified she would be sued again by Depp, saying the defamation lawsuit was meant to take her voice. Heard also doubled down on abuse allegations, saying Depp has physically assaulted her.
When your life is at risk, not only will you take the blame for things that you shouldn't take the blame for, but when you're in an abusive dynamic, psychologically, emotionally, and physically, you don't have the luxury of saying, hey, this is black and white.
He says he never hit you. Never. Is that a lie?
Yes, it is.
Not one woman has come forward and said he physically hit them. You were the only one.
Look what happened to me when I came forward. Would you?
Joining us today is law and crime analyst Richard Schoenstein and co-host Terri Austin. Richard, winning a civil suit hasn't stopped Heard, so is there anything Johnny Depp can do to stop her from saying she was abused by him, like an injunction, for example?
Yeah, I guess in theory, Johnny Depp could go back to court and seek an injunction getting her to stop, but that would be really difficult. 2 reasons. First, it's always very difficult to get an injunction against speech. That's one of the hardest things to get in the courts because we don't want to stop people from talking. But second is one of the big problems here would be to get that injunction, he'd have to show harm. I don't know what harm she's causing because nobody believes her. So who cares if she goes on NBC and tells her story again? If it's not believed, if it's not adversely affecting Johnny Depp, why would he need an injunction?
Makes sense, and plus you'd be wasting a lot of money, but I think Camille Vasquez would love the business. But Terri, Amber Heard continues to say that Johnny Depp physically and sexually abused her. Now, we've talked about injunction. The other question now is, could she be subjected to another defamation suit by Johnny Depp?
Well, she could be, but I agree with Richard for the same reasons that it doesn't really make sense to try to get an injunction at this point. It really doesn't make sense to try to bring another defamation lawsuit. She would have to show damages. He would have to go through the whole same thing again. And it's not necessary. He's proved his case. He's shown that her statements were defamatory. She's repeating those statements, and she does have a First Amendment right to say what she's thinking. So I don't think he's going to go back into court. Honestly, I think I would try in some way to come to some sort of agreement with her that she will stop saying these statements in public, because at some point, it's just got to be exhausting as far as the Depp team is concerned.
Yeah, I can see most of people being 50-50. Maybe they want to see another Johnny Depp, Amber Heard trial, and another group saying we don't want to see them ever again. So we'll keep eyes on it and see if something does come of these allegations and statements. And in Florida, recently acquitted of the top charges, Danielle Redlick is released from jail just hours after a verdict is handed down. Redlick was charged with second-degree murder and evidence tampering for the murder of her husband, Michael Redlick. Redlick claims she killed him in self-defense when she stabbed him in 2019. The two had been married for nearly 20 years and had 2 children together. Defense attorneys say the couple's relationship had a history of abuse and cheating. The couple had also reportedly filed for divorce by the time of Michael's death. 911 calls reveal Redlick initially told dispatchers that Michael stabbed himself and had a heart attack. Investigators say she waited several hours before calling for help the night of his death. After only 4 hours of deliberations, jurors reached a verdict last Friday.
State of Florida versus Danielle Justine Redlick. Verdict as to count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. So say we all. Signed, juror badge number 283, foreperson. Special finding, this page was left blank. Verdict as to count 2. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of tampering with physical evidence as charged in the information. So say we all. Signed, juror badge number 283, foreperson, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on the 17th day of June, 2022.
While a judge initially denied the defense's motion for Redlick to be released, she was bonded out hours after the ruling. Redlick is now set to be sentenced on August 5th for the tampering with evidence conviction. Also in Florida, the so-called Candy the Dog civil trial is put on hold after 3 jurors test positive for COVID-19. The case stems from an incident in 2016 when defendant Zachary Dieterle shot and killed Candy, a terrier mix. The lawsuit was brought on by Rodney Jacobson, Candy's owner, and a witness to the shooting. Dieterle claims the dog was in an attack stance when he shot her. Local officials say Dieterle was not charged because he had a permit to carry the weapon and feared for his life, and that he was within his rights to use deadly force because he feared the dog would kill him. Jacobson says Candy had no history of aggression. He says the ultimate goal of the trial is for the Sarasota Sheriff's Office to determine the shooting was not justified and to file criminal charges against Dieterle. The trial is expected to resume on Thursday. Stay with Law&Crime Daily for the latest developments. Still ahead on Law&Crime Daily, why jurors must restart deliberations in the civil trial of comedian Bill Cosby. But first, the deadly Waukesha holiday parade. Will the upcoming jury trial remain in Waukesha County? Welcome back. The man officials say drove his vehicle into Wisconsin holiday parade changes his plea from not guilty to not guilty by reason of mental disease or defect. Law&Crime Daily first brought you the story last November when officials say 40-year-old Darrell Brooks crashed his vehicle into the annual holiday parade and did not stop driving when hitting people or barriers. 6 people were killed in the incident and dozens more injured. Brooks now faces 83 charges in Waukesha County, including multiple homicide charges, battery, domestic abuse, bail jumping, recklessly endangering safety, and hit and run involving a death. Brooks appeared in Waukesha County Court on Monday, officially changing his plea. While the judge denied moving the October jury trial out of Waukesha County, she ruled jurors will be partially sequestered for the case. That means jurors are required to remain at the courthouse during the day, but can return home at night. They will meet at different confidential locations every morning to be transported by law enforcement to the courthouse. Once there, jurors will use a secure entrance to get inside. During the lunch and court recesses, jurors will have limited access to their cell phones. The trial is expected to last all of October. All right, Terri, changing his plea. What does that mean for this case, and why do you think he did it?
You know, he did it because the evidence is clear. He committed the act. There were multiple witnesses. They took him in immediately. So I think that he and his counsel recognized the fact it was far better to plead not guilty by reason of insanity and defect. So what he has to do here is prove that he does have this defect, and he has to show that he didn't understand, he lacked the capacity to appreciate the difference between right and wrong. If he, in fact, can do that, even if he did commit this crime, then he would probably go to a mental institution. So I think they decided just take chances. They would do it this way instead of just pleading not guilty. And in fact, the jury could find that he did it, but he was insane, and so he doesn't have to go to jail for the rest of his life.
Absolutely. Now, Richard, the judge ruled that the case stays where it is, but with so much publicity and so many victims, what are the odds local jurors haven't researched the case or at least know someone involved?
Well, I think it's very hard to get a jury here that doesn't know something about this event. It was so prominent and affected the community. The question for the judge is really, is that any better if we move to a neighboring county? And it sounds like the judge didn't think it would be. So the judge has taken other steps in this trial. They're going to bring in a bigger jury pool to select from. They're going to give the lawyers more opportunities to strike jurors, and they're going to put in these partial sequestering rules that you mentioned in your opening. And those are all designed to mitigate the risk of having a jury that already has an opinion about this case.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'm going to bet there's going to be a lot of struggles finding a jury, and it might eventually move, but we've got to see how it plays out first. The judge is doing their best to ensure that doesn't occur. And in Minnesota, the trial for two former Minneapolis officers still facing state charges in connection with George Floyd's death is being moved again. J. Alexander King and Tu Tao are charged with aiding and abetting second-degree murder and second-degree manslaughter in the 2020 killing of Floyd. His death sparked nationwide protests over use of force and discrimination. Another officer, Thomas Lane, pled guilty last month to the aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter. And all three officers were previously convicted in federal court of violating Floyd's rights. Former officer Derek Chauvin is currently serving a 22.5-year sentence for kneeling on Floyd's neck for more than 9 minutes, murdering him. King and Tao's state trial was set to begin last week, then was delayed to January. On Friday, state prosecutors requested a speedy trial on behalf of Floyd's family. In response, King's defense attorney on Sunday requested an even longer delay until April. Prosecutors and defense attorneys came to an agreement to now start the trial in October. The three former officers are still awaiting sentencing for their federal convictions. Headed east to Michigan, where the Supreme Court upholds a decades-long prison sentence for Larry Nassar after denying his request for a new sentencing hearing. The former doctor pled guilty in 2017 to sexually abusing countless gymnasts under the care over the years. The sexual misconduct incidents occurred while Nassar was working as a team doctor at Michigan State University and as doctor for Team USA Gymnastics. His victims included top Olympic gymnasts Simone Biles, Michaela Maroney, and Allie Raceman, among others. More than 150 survivors of Nassar's abuse shared powerful victim impact statements at his sentencing, where he received 40 to 175 years in state prison. Nassar requested a resentencing hearing, which the judge denied. He then appealed the decision, alleging the judge was biased and prejudiced. The Michigan Court of Appeals upheld Nassar's sentence. Survivors of Nassar's abuse are also seeking a $1 billion settlement from the FBI, saying agents mishandled the investigation by making false statements and ignoring reports of abuse for years. Coming up on Law and Crime Daily, survivors of the Oxford High School shooting point the finger to their school district, filing a federal lawsuit. Plus, deliberations begin again in the civil trial of Bill Cosby. What's at stake for the disgraced comedian? Welcome back. A California jury had to start over to determine the outcome of a case involving Bill Cosby, as the comedian and actor faces sexual assault allegations in civil court. Cosby is being sued by now 64-year-old Judy Huth, who claims he sexually assaulted her at the Playboy Mansion in the 1970s when she was just 16 years old. Cosby has claimed there is no evidence Huth was ever at the mansion when the alleged sexual assault occurred. Now, nearly 50 years later, her case is the first to head to court since his criminal conviction and ultimate release when it was thrown out for a sexual assault alleged by a different woman. The jury began deliberating on Thursday and reportedly had decided on 8 of the 9 verdicts by Friday afternoon. Their deliberations, however, were interrupted when the courthouse was cleared at 4:30 to close down for the night. A tight budget wouldn't allow for deputies to stay for overtime, so the jury couldn't reach a decision on all counts. Jurors reconvened Monday morning and had to start deliberations over again after the foreperson left for a prior obligation with permission from the judge. Cosby has denied Huth's accusations against him, as he has with the more than 50 women who have also accused him of sexual assault. Terri, what does it mean to restart deliberations, and why does that happen?
Well, unfortunately, it means they have to restart deliberations. They have to start from the very beginning. They have 12 jurors. You have to have 9 out of 12. They're out in Santa Monica in California. And so all 9 of those jurors have to discuss and deliberate the entire case. So they're starting all over, and it's unfortunate because the excused person was the foreperson. You have to think that perhaps he was leading those discussions. It's unclear how the alternate will affect those deliberations. But now they will have all of the same 12 jurors. They'll talk about the case. They've asked a question or two already. They wanted to know whether or not the individual, reported the crime before the statute actually ran out. So they're looking at all of the evidence very carefully. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, Richard, I get it. You're reading tea leaves by answering this question, but 8 of the 9 are decided, had to leave early. Do you think the jury restarting favors Cosby or the plaintiff, Judy Huth?
I think it totally favors Cosby for 2 reasons. One, I think the jury was coming in with a verdict that he was liable. And the reason I think that is because the question remaining was about punitive damages. It wouldn't be a relevant question unless he was being found liable. So it's a chance for him to get the jury to undo that. The second reason it's in his favor is it gives him a potential ground for appeal, that they've substituted a jury and sent him back to the drawing board to restart deliberations. That even if he loses, now he's got an argument to an appellate court.
Yeah, and Cosby so far is 1 for 1 with appeals, and so maybe this is one that he might be looking forward to again. Well, thank you for that input, both of you. And Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk is facing a multi-billion-dollar federal lawsuit from an investor who claims Musk is running a pyramid scheme. The plaintiff, Keith Johnson, accuses Musk and his companies of racketeering, saying they touted Dogecoin cryptocurrency and purposely drove up its price to let it then fall back down again. He's suing them for $258 billion, saying Musk was aware that Dogecoin had no value, yet promoted it to profit from its trading. That amount comes from Johnson seeking $86 billion in damages, which represents the decline in Dogecoin's market value since May of last year. Johnson wants that amount tripled. He also seeks to block Musk from promoting the cryptocurrency and for a judge to declare trading it gambling. In May 2021, Dogecoin traded at 74 cents. That's down to 5.8. Also in celebrity news, Rob Kardashian and Blac Chyna will not be headed to a jury trial as the former couple settles outside of a courtroom. Blac Chyna, whose real name is Angela White, alleged Kardashian illegally posted nude photos of her in 2017, following their breakup. According to court documents, the pair agreed to a settlement in the final hour for the sake of their shared daughter, Dream. Jury selection in the case was expected to begin on Monday. This comes just weeks after Blac Chyna lost a defamation suit to Rob Kardashian's mother, Kris Jenner, and sisters Kim Kardashian, Khloe Kardashian, and Kylie Jenner. Blac Chyna argued the Kardashian-Jenner family defamed her as unstable, which led to the cancellation of her reality show Rob and Chyna. She argued that created a loss of wages. In the end, a California jury sided with the Kardashian-Jenner family and awarded Blac Chyna no money in damages. When we come back, a new lawsuit after the Oxford High School shooting, as families seek change in policies in the upcoming school year. Welcome back to Law and Crime Daily. The families of about 20 students at a Michigan high school have filed a federal lawsuit in a push for policy changes in the district. It comes 7 months after 4 students were shot and killed at an Oxford high school. The 15-year-old alleged gunman is charged with 24 counts, including first-degree murder and terrorism, after he allegedly opened fire at an Oxford high school in November 30. 4 students were killed, 8 others, including a teacher, were seriously injured. The gunman is being charged as an adult and has pled not guilty to all charges. His parents, James and Jennifer Crumbly, are also facing involuntary manslaughter after allegedly failing to recognize warning signs ahead of the shooting. The lawsuit isn't asking for monetary compensation, but rather for transparency and changes to the upcoming school year. The students claim the district is violating their right to a safe learning environment, arguing there are currently harmful policies in place which also allowed the shooter to return to class before the shooting, despite the school allegedly knowing he was suicidal and was having homicidal thoughts. Richard, why is there so much litigation when it seems everyone wants the same thing? Answers. Well, will this cause delays in getting them that very thing they're looking for?
Everybody wants answers, but I suppose they have different approaches to how to get them. You want to investigate this. You want the investigation to be quick. You want it to be thorough, and you want it to be fair. So that puts in controversy a lot of issues, the most prominent of which is who should do the investigation. Should the school do it, which seems like it might be tilted, or should someone independent be brought in? That seems to me appropriate fodder for litigation.
Yeah, my vote, independence. Always a better look. Now, Terri, how does a civil suit work when no money is being requested? If the 20 students win, do they get to create the policy?
You don't have to have an amount in controversy necessarily if you have a U.S. agency involved or if you have a constitutional question, which is what we have here. They are saying that their constitutional rights were violated, and they are saying that they do have some input on that policy. They want the policy to be transparent, and they want safeguards to be implemented. So they certainly do have some input there. And ultimately, the final resolution could be better policies for the safety of those students.
Yeah, let's hoping for better policies not only here but across the country. Well, thank you both, and thank you for joining us here on Law and Crime Daily. We'll see you next time as we discuss justice in America.